getting ready to get going here. And this is Terry Helfrich, and very knowledgeable. Been the orchard business for a number of years, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, like 37 or something, I think.
All my life. I just
Anyway.
all the way back from I'm an Ashton High graduate, and there wasn't a whole lot of jobs. In '71 when I got out of the Army, and so went to work in the orchards, and I was with Harry and David for a number of years. Worked my way up to the orchard manager, and put in a lot of irrigation projects along the way. I usually worked with a designer, called a hydrologist. One of the most current orchards I worked on, 380 acres, and the canal was up above us. It was a dream. No pumps on it, gravity flow. We could irrigate that orchard in 4 days with just using drip irrigation on the peaches, and then we had little micro sprinklers on the pear trees, and just everything was on timers. And that's stuff we're going to be talking about. That's my knowledge and background, and especially today with the water situation that we have around, it's going to be more and more challenging. That's why we want to deliver water to every individual plant. And that's kind of what we're after today, and not broadcasting water or standing there with a hose. Because you guys got stuff to do. When you retire, you're busy. You're busier than you were when you're working. But you're busy, you're doing stuff you like, and that's what's nice. But you want to go to the coast, you got your irrigation all set up. I'm going to go into this a little bit. I borrowed this from
Phyllis.
from her. What's your name?
Phyllis.
Phyllis. Borrowed this from her, and this is what saves your life. Is this kind of a timer? You have to come on at what time of day. It goes for how long you want it to go, for a half hour, hour, whatever you want to go. And we'll be talking about that. I like to be organized. And so I have right here, I've got my little box of everything that I need, everything sorted. These are in this box. I've got what I love and I mainly use is emitters, the 1 gallon an hour emitters. I like to stay with the 1 gallon an hour emitter because you have a tomato plant or basil or whatever you're growing. You think about it, if you turn your little timer on for a half hour, that's giving it a half a gallon of water. Think about it, half a gallon of water for a tomato plant. Go out right now, you've got small tomato plants, pour a half a gallon of water on it. That's a lot of water. So that's what's nice. And so as the summer goes on, then you can go ahead and maybe move it up to an hour. Because at that time, they're using a lot more water. As plants are, and pear trees, what I was mainly dealing with in peaches, is that when they're getting water, they quit growing. When they pull the water in, that's when they grow. So what you need wetting, and you need some drying, and you need wetting and drying, and that's what makes them happy. Too much water, we know what happens. Plants don't do well, they aren't happy. That's why I like to stay with 1 emitter, 1 gallon an hour for everything. If you have, say, like you have a tree or you have something more that you need more water, then I have 2 gallon an hour emitter. Either I can put in the 2 gallon an hour emitter, or put in a 2 1 gallon an hour emitters, and the mathematics works out the same. So, and sometimes I know there's some fruit trees down here, and I see what they have, and that's these little micro sprinklers. What's nice, they're just bought at Home Depot. They're 20 gallons an hour. Depending on how wide you open them up, the more they open up, they get a bigger pattern, and then you can kind of shrink them down. I use a few of these around my fruit trees. I use one around my fruit tree, and it works out great. I live in Phoenix. I got just a little under a half acre. I live in a neighborhood, but I got chickens, I got an orchard, I got a garden, and it's fun farming. I guess I've been a farmer all my life, and I enjoy it, and I like to do it. And it's healthy. I think it's good for us. So anyway, so that's my emitters. And then I got these little guys. These go on, I got a line set up here, and I'll kind of go over that with you. All the way to this is how our gardens are set up, basically, and I'll do that here in a little bit. But right here I have my little emitter, and I use a punch, a hole punch like this. Punch a hole in the line, like this. Do that. Then I take my little, this is just kind of a coupler to hook onto your emitter. Now you listen and you'll hear a snap. Hear that snap? It's in there good. Then I use my poly tube and I hook onto the coupler, and then I put my emitter on close to my plant. Now you can, or you can put the emitter here and run your poly tube off. Neither way is wrong, they're both good. I prefer this because you can you can go out and watch it drip. And you know that you don't have it plugged or something like that. So that's how that works. Those are the tools. This is my main tools for punching the hole. Then I put in either a coupler or emitter. And then on these poly tubes, which is what these spaghetti tubes, I call this, it's 1/4 inch. Comes this 100 feet, they come in 50 feet, they come in less. They have different kinds. They have some that are more pliable. Online you can get some, or you can order them.
Mr. Landscaper.
Mr. Lance.
Makes a very pliable, heavy 1/4 inch line. Very easy for some of us that have arthritis and that, and it's hard to punch those plastic fittings into that final tubing without heating it first. If you have a method to heat it, whether it's hot water or, and we've got something that I think would probably work to help in the colder weather, and it's your pocket warmers, your hand warmers. They get warm enough, you can wrap those around the tubing, warm the tubing up before you put it on.
Did you mention a name?
What's the name? The name of this? The question is, she's
The manufacturer?
Yes.
Mr. Landscaper.
Let's repeat the question so he can get it on his
Yeah, I just
video.
did.
Yeah.
I said it's,
Here's
yeah.
a hand
We're working with a camera here too. So. Yeah, and here's the hand warmers. Yeah, that's a great idea. I've never
Different
heard that.
sizes.
I like it.
We have plenty of them, so call them.
So those work great because you'll see, I'm going to, what I do is, I always have a set of these that you use for cutting on your plants. Those work, that works really good to, cut your poly tube. Or if you want to cut your spaghetti tube. And if you want to cut your poly tube, good catch.
Good shot.
So anyway, I missed the garbage can, but I got close. No. But anyway, what she's talking about is that when you go to stick this poly tube onto this bar, onto this coupler, you have to really work and wiggle it. And if you do have arthritis, it can be difficult. And so I just kind of wiggle it like that. Warming it up would help. This room is warm. A lot of times you get out in the cold, it's a little more difficult. So now I'm ready to put my emitter on the end. And that just slides right on, just like this. There's a barb. Make sure you put it on the right way. Each one of these, you can see there's a barb on one side and kind of a flat tip on the other. So you always put the barb in, and then the flat tip goes to the outside. You can always kind of blow on it, and it's clearly going this way, but going the other way, it's made not to go the other way. So the water goes out. And these are all what we call pressure compensating, meaning that there's pressure regulators, from what I understand, on all of your bib hookups.
Well, if you put them on.
If you put them on. And as you look here, I've got two types of connectors, an L and then these T's. Two different types. This one, it just shoves in. Now without a pressure regulator, they can blow off. And so you'll come down and you'll have a mess. And part of your curtain will be dry, the other part will be wet. So these with pressure regulator work really well. They just shove in. They're really easy to use. My preference I use on my garden is these barb type. They have little barbs on them, and the tube slides into that. And then I have a pinch clamp, called a pinch clamp. And then I have this tool which closes the pinch clamp. And that really secures it. So just a little different. You have to buy this extra tool, and it's a little bit of work, but it's real nice. It just pinches that pinch clamp right on, and it will not blow up under any pressure. So that's just different T's and L's and stuff like that. So, and then we come out of our faucet hose bib. You just come right into your, I call this a manifold, because what you're doing is you're distributing water, so you call that a manifold. Can't see you, sorry. And here's onto the hose bib. So here's your garden, going out that way, you hook onto here, and then with this timer, this goes, see the pressure regulator, where does it go? I don't use one.
The timer goes on, usually we put a Y onto the faucet.
Yeah. So you can use other water.
Yeah.
That's nice.
And then you put your timer on, and then off the bottom of the timer is a vacuum brake, and the pressure regulator, and then the filter, and then onto your plastic tissue.
Okay, so
there is a board back there that everybody can take a look at.
Sure.
The sequence.
So the pressure regulator goes ahead of this or after?
After. On the bottom side.
Yeah, bottom side. So this is your clock or your timer that distributes what time you want it to come on, and how much water, how long you want it to run. So early in the season, and from what I heard from forecasters, which is good news for Rogue Valley, is we're going to have a wet May. It feels more like it was when we were all younger. We used to get wet summers, and so that's what we're going to have. That's what the forecasters are saying. Last night it rained all night, so that's nice. So this comes off, and then you just hook onto your lines, and that's just it, with your pressure regulator in between. And this is a must. You don't want to go down every day, folks. You don't want to go down every day and turn your water on. This way here, it does it for you. Because I've got fruit trees, I got a little bit of lawn, and I love herbs. And we grow Roma tomatoes because we can them and make good pizza and things like that. So we can go to the coast and come home and everything's going well. You don't have to worry about it or anything. It gives you freedom. And then that way you're getting the exact amount of water. This whole thing is about getting the exact amount of water per plant. And that's what you want. Have it directed right at the plant. You stand out there with a hose and broadcast and so on like that, it's just, or if you're gone, you have somebody else do it. How you're going to get the same amount of water. This way here, you're precisely giving water to your plant, and that's really key.
So, Terry,
yes.
Can I interject here? You got a little section of hose, which is nice. Sometimes a lot of the hoses have a tendency to kink, a little bit long or whatever. Generally, you can hook right up to the bottom of that filter with your plastic tubing.
Yeah, I just happened to have this in my shop when I was doing this, but yeah, you can run this poly tube right on up and hook all this on. You just got to get the fittings. I don't want to lose anybody, so I'm going to just take a pause for a minute and let questions come. Does anybody? Yes, right there, please.
So I have, I'd like to have a mix of soaker, hose, and emitters. I have some areas like the strawberries or something where I want the whole area soaked, but I have other areas where I want just emitters. Is there some way you can combine both of those things, and how do you do that?
Yes, absolutely. You would.
It's in the, you're looking for the markers that are in the bag on the left-hand side.
I just thought maybe we could draw this out a little bit.
There you go.
Which brings to mind, I was going to show you this. This is my log book. I think everybody's a gardener. A log book's good to have. In February, that's when we start in our solarium, in our greenhouse. We start tomatoes, peppers, flowers, and things like that. So we just kind of got all of that. It's just nice to have a log book, and then every year you'll remember. Oh yeah, March, we're going to get the hemp and the basil planted, things like that, and map everything out is really important. Then you thought it's like it just keeps you organized. It's just part of all the organizing that we're trying to do. It just makes your job easier when next year you think you're going to remember how you did it all and what everything was. But I go back and look at my map and I don't remember. So yeah, so deal with other plants. So let's just say this is our manifold like we got here now, and then of course we have the plants coming down, and then of course you got go into your faucet, just drop like that, your hose bib and your caulk and all of that. So the question was, as you have other plants. So let's just say we're going to start out with tomatoes. Let's say we have a tomato there, maybe here. Now all of a sudden we get down here and we got some strawberries. Would that be a safe way to show the strawberries? Something like that. Say like let's just use that. So what you can do is go ahead and run the spaghetti tube off with your coupler, that little coupler we use, and come down here, and they make a soaker hose. They do make little, yeah, they make soaker hose. I had one and I did not bring it, but it looks just like this. It looks just like this, and you get that at Home Depot. I see Ewing down here on the highway, great irrigation company, very helpful there. They're about ready to open. They were burnt out during the fire. So they do make soaker hoses, and to make them soaker hoses, I sometimes I use, sometimes I don't. But probably what I do on strawberries, I'd run that soaker hose down, turn, and come back. And then a part of my toolbox I didn't mention, they're plugs. We call them Goof Plugs. Let's say you put a hole in your poly tube, and then you change your mind. You can take and plug the hole with this Goof tube. Okay, plug, Goof Plug. Same thing on the end of your dripper hose or your soaker hose. Yeah, you can go ahead and put one of these on here, and that'll stop. The nice thing about soaker, the small soaker hoses is that they give out precise amount of water. A lot of people, some people, I got friends, they just, oh, I don't want to go through all of this. And you don't have to. They just run an old-fashioned soaker hose down the middle of their garden and let her go. I like precise watering, and that's what we're talking about today. Neither one's wrong. It's just precise versus big watering going on, sort of.
So,
yeah, another question.
Yeah, interject about the soaker hose. I'm not a big fan of soaker hose.
I'm not either.
Especially in these small plots here. Don't think they're necessary. And Vicki did an experiment with one, just a small length of soaker hose, put it in a 5-gallon bucket,
Yeah.
turn the water on. Within just a very short period, minute or so,
2 minutes.
2 minutes,
Bucket was
that
full.
5-gallon bucket was full of water. That's a lot of water.
Yeah, soaker hose is it's not precise irrigation, and really that's what we need to be doing with our water situation. Right now, Medford, we're in good shape, but we don't know.
Terry, can I make a suggestion as far as an alternative to soaker hose? Is you can get spaghetti hose that has emitters every 6 inches and every
You can
12
that
inches.
too, yeah.
And what you find is if they're every 6 inches, they act just like regular emitters. They totally soak the soil. You don't have to have soak of the whole length. 6 inches to 12 inches. I use 12 inch. 12 inch really soaks the ground well enough.
Yeah.
And
Now, would you
that's what I
run it?
use.
Yeah. So again, the question is still.
It looks just like
soaker
that,
hose.
except it has
Yeah,
emitters in it.
exactly. I had one and I didn't bring it, but so would you run it down and back?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Depending on how wide an area that you were trying to cover.
Right.
The soaker hose will cover about 1 foot by 1 foot, every emitter.
What size gallon did you use for that?
I think most of them are in the range of 1/2 to 1 inch.
1 gallon.
1 gallon
Yeah.
a minute.
You'll see them on. They look.
An hour. Thank you.
They look exactly like this, except you'll see a bump, and that's the emitter, and it's also pressure compensating.
Yeah.
And you can get them up to. In fact, we use those in certain areas in gardens. Back when I was commercial gardening, like down the road, it's like that, every 12 inches, you get further than that, you get them different, but 12 inches is
Yeah.
just right. And then you can just run that down, turn and come back, and then again, put your goof plug in the end, and then that'll stop it. But yeah, it does, and offset them.
Now-
When you run it down and back, let's say it's built right in, so you have it set up like that every 12 inches. Then when you go back, get it in between the plants. Instead of across, make more of a triangle, makes, then you got this little triangle going up here. You can see that you really get good coverage that way. If you have them across from each other, square doesn't work as good for a circle as a triangle. Yes, please.
What do you call the hose again that has the pre-punched holes for?
They're
Yeah, I don't know what the official name for it
I
is.
wish I would have brought it.
They're
I have
inline
some,
drippers.
Terry.
Yes,
I
please.
have some.
Oh, do you?
We have a demo board here. You want to come back and take a look at it? This brown hose here.
That's right,
is the
comes
other
around.
two.
There's one other thing to mention about it without getting too confusing. There's two types. One is called laser cut, and it has just a little slice every 12 inches. It's not as effective as the one that actually has an emitter every 12 inches. You don't see the emitter, but if you feel it, if you feel the hose and squeeze it a little bit, you'll notice there's something hard every 12 inches. And that one seems to be more accurate than the one that's just laser cut.
Yeah, I agree. It's and again, they have those that I ran off, forgot it. It looks exactly like this, except you can feel there's a little spot on there, and there's an emitter built right in.
And the green
Every 12 inches. And then like your strawberries are in the middle, you go down, come off of your poly tube, come down with that, back around, and put a plug in right there. And you're in good shape. That's for strawberries, and what else would you use that for, you think?
I use it for everything.
Well, row crops. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, row crops, and anything planted close together. Tomato plants, you don't plant that
No.
close together. When you come to the tomato plants, I like using the emitters myself, because you're getting this soaker hose is getting that's area irrigation, where when you have a tomato plant, say like that and basil here or whatever, and you have them so far apart, you're getting it exactly to that plant, and you're not feeding weeds.
So I'm using it for onions and garlic. It works really well that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we have those trough type beds, pretty nice, and we grow our garlic, and you just loop it around through there, and it works really, really well. Yes.
The one disadvantage to the old-fashioned soaker hose is they fall apart almost within a year or so.
From sunlight.
They're out in the
Yeah,
sun and
and
they
like
just
Michael
turn
said,
brittle.
he put one in a bucket. And the question was on soaker hoses, what the old soaker hoses that's my mother used to use. When I was a kid, she had roses and she'd lay that soaker hose out. They're constantly fighting weeds, deteriorate, and then you don't even know how much you're getting a lot of water. You can fill a bucket in a very short time with a soaker hose. This is precise. That's what we're really trying to do. We're trying to manage our water and be precise. And that's really what you want. And then with the clock, it's being carefree. You can set it up, have your garden set up. You can go to 3 rows, 2 rows. I know most of the plots out here. How wide are they?
They're 12 by 10 roughly.
12 by 10. So perfect. You can go with 3 lines, 2 lines, 4 lines, or whatever. And then like with your grapes or something like that, your grapes. You're the guy with the grapes. I pruned them a little bit.
Pardon me?
I think was that the ones I pruned a little bit?
No,
I didn't.
He doesn't know.
Okay. Anyway, like with grapes, it'd be the same thing. Let's say, because I think one of them I saw was this is kind of the open of the garden, and the grapes are kind of here in the back. And there I would run probably, you can run your emitters off of a line. And I'd just run straight off of the line. I'd put in a couple gallon out, at least a gallon an hour. Maybe 2, 1 on each side of it, something like that. A gallon an hour or 2 in the middle, something like that. But so you can do the same thing, setting up your garden. And this area here can have, I like it organized. I like tomatoes in one area, everything, And for, another thing, lettuce. See, lettuce, this would be good for lettuce too. So this is good. I should have brought that and I ran off, forgot it. I don't like it looks just like this, but it's really kind of a coarse looking, and didn't you had
Made
some
out
of
of
that.
tires.
What's that?
Made out of tires. You talking about the soaker hose?
Yeah,
Yeah, they're old tires.
Yeah, and
It
you
looks
really,
like it.
yeah, you really don't know what the gallonage is going out. You know, it's just kind of a guess. So where here, you know exactly your gallonage. And that's what's nice. That's where your clock works with you. Your clock is your best friend. You know how much water you want to get to your plant.
Terry,
Yes.
don't mean to interrupt.
Yes. No, please. Anybody? I don't want to. This is informal. Anybody have a question? Just please ask.
Anyway, back to the timers. We got a little bit of an issue down there in our garden. And the issue is, it was either when the system was put in or when a repair was made. And dirt and gravel has gotten into those lines. Now, the problem is, especially if you don't have that little screen gasket off of your faucet, sometimes you'll get those little pebbles, sand, whatever, into the timer, and it'll prevent the timer from shutting off or sometimes even coming on. And you'll go down there a week later and your plot would be absolutely flooded. So my suggestion is, I love the timers, they're great. If you're gonna be gone for a period of time and something's on a timer, maybe get a neighbor gardener or somebody to go down and check occasionally. And it's a real easy to remedy. You just take it apart and turn the water on, open the timer up, let it flush out, and then it's good to go again.
When we were in the orchards, we'd have our water coming out like so. And it's ditch water, so we had to have it. It was a filter, and it had a canister down below, and it would filter out the water. And you can get those for small gardens. What you do is you take that canister off once in a while, and you see all this stuff collected in there. I've never had trouble with municipal water myself, but it sounds like you do, and you could. So a pre-filter, they do sell pre-filters so your pre-filter, and then you put in your clock, then you put in your pressure regulator, something like that.
They also sell a filter with a pressure regulator all built in
Do
one.
they? There you go. That'd be the thing. Probably Ewing would have that. I don't think Home Depot or Lowe's
Home
would have.
Depot has them
Oh,
too.
do they? Okay. That'd be the ticket right there. So you put in your pressure regulator with a filter, and how does that filter clear out? How do you
You
clean
just
that?
unscrew it
A
and pull it
canister
out.
kind of a
clean it.
deal. That's the way to go. Absolutely. No, that's
And
a
the,
good
the little-
suggestion.
The little washer with the screen in it is real important
Mhm.
to
Yeah,
just
so
double
yeah, you take that.
protection.
It's like your oil filter. It's almost like an oil filter. You ever pull it? I'm sure you don't.
Nobody does that anymore.
Anyway, but yeah, there's a little gas in there you want to sit. Yes.
So Terry, I have an example of that here too.
Okay. What,
This
you
is
want to
your
bring that
filter
up?
right here.
You want to bring that up? Is it heavy?
Pull the filter out, run the water through it, pop
Yeah.
it back in.
He asked if you'd bring the board up.
Should we bring that up here? Can we set it up here?
I just broke it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's see what she's got on there. It's,
I can't get the filter back in, Terry.
okay.
Broke it.
Okay, so here we got she got all kinds of stuff on here that I didn't bring. Here's the elbows and the T's. Here's her filter. So this goes into the hose bib, and then your line, like here, I used a hose, they use this, goes into here, and then this filter just slides in and out very easily. And there's a cap that goes on that. So there's your filter there. So basically you would have your, see, how would that be? You'd have your clock.
Well, it's right there.
She has the lineup from the faucet.
Oh, gotcha, right there. Okay, there's the faucet. Okay, there it is there. So, okay, perfect, it's right here. So there's your clock. There's your backflow preventer, or is that a pressure regulator too? This is a pressure regulator. Backflow, is that required?
No, it's not.
Nothing's required.
Nothing's required, I'm sorry, you're waiting.
Yeah.
So anyway, so you have, this is really important. So here's your regulator, here's your filter, and then it goes right on into your line. So that's perfect right there. That's exactly, that really makes it clear. This is a great little demo.
If you have a phone, you can just take a picture of that.
Yeah, we'll have it back there. You can take a picture of it, and then, yeah, I think this is everything that's here. Yeah, here's those, the soaker hose that you're talking about with the little emitters. You kind of see them. They're just kind of little fat ones, kind of right in the middle, and those are about 12 inches apart. Here's your little punch, different kind of a punch. Here's another type of punch that you squeeze it. I've never used that, so I'm not sure how that works. You squeeze it and punches it, and then you can go right in and put your barb or your emitter in. Is that right? Or you
It
have to
doesn't
take
work
this off?
well on a warm day.
Yeah, none of them do.
No. Well, the hand punch does.
Hand punch does, but it still wants to, what I do is I kind of have to hold it. What happens is on a really warm day, this gets really soft, and then you have to kind of pinch it a little bit and hold its shape. But it's best to do it kind of in the morning when it's a little bit cool. In the middle of the afternoon, if you're under pressure, which I've had to do, it's a little more challenging because all this stuff gets really, really pliable. Something that she has on here that is part of my organized kit here is on the end. On the end, you have this little, it's like a figure 8. And so it's really easy to put on. It just slides on. Slides on like that. You bend it over, and then the other part of the 8 goes right on there like that. And that pinches it off when you're done. When you're done, run your line. But this is really key. As the summer goes on, it gets kind of warm, and you'll get algae and different things build up in your line. So maybe once a month or every, depending on how hot it is, just flush it, absolutely. And you open this up, and you'll be surprised. You'll see it looks like coffee coming out. Let it run until it's clear, and then just close it back up, and we got it.
Can I make one other suggestion?
Absolutely.
I really like these. You don't have to use these. It's an extra expense. But it's really easy to flush out the line. So at the end of the line, if you put one of these, you just take it off.
When you say one of these, what's
It's a screw-on end cap that goes on the end of a run line for half-inch hose. And what it does is it just allows you to seal it. And what I find when you're actually setting your system up, you're getting dirt in here. So
Yeah,
before
you
you
do.
actually
That's
turn
right.
your system on,
Flush
it's
it.
really
Flush
good.
it first.
Flush it, even to the point where you kind of hold your hand over it a little bit to build up pressure, and then let it off, and build up pressure, and let it off. And it sort of flushes out all the junk that you put into the line. But this tends to work a little better, especially when it's warm, than those things. Although those work fine.
Yeah, in the.
If you're doing an orchard, this is a lot more expensive.
Yeah, it is more expensive. I did some work with Pascal off of Suncrest Road. That's all these are really inexpensive. Those are great, but they're a little more expensive. These work good, but yeah, I'd have the crew go out. But you're running off of a pump, so they can open up 4 or 5, and then they have to turn around and start closing them and just work your way on down. But all the vineyards, I was at a vineyard one time doing some wine tasting. I just walked out to I saw their irrigation was on. I opened it up, and they opened up the end. It was bad. It just like coffee came for like a half hour. I told the manager of the vineyard, "Hey, you guys need to flush your lines more often. It shouldn't get that bad." So yeah, keep your lines clean.
That's where the filter helps.
The filter does help, but we had here. But it's not so much the filters. That does help. You do get stuff in. It's just the heat. You got black. That just absorbs, and that water sits in there when everything shuts off, and you get algae, and you get different things build up in the flesh. But anyway, so I kind of went over it quick because I didn't want because a lot of people already came with some knowledge, and some people didn't, and I don't want anybody to leave without full understanding, full knowledge. I want a level of comfort for everybody before you leave. So any more questions? Mike?
Something else about the timers, the two timers you see up there, Orbit, and they're not very expensive, makes a good timer. And they're easy to program for people that might have a little bit of a problem programming. What I don't like to see down there at the garden is the timers that when you put the batteries in, they start timing because there's different time schedules for each elevation, and that was set up a lot to do with keeping the pump and the water system running so that everybody's water didn't come on at the same time.
Oh.
So the upper level is 5 to 7 in the morning, the second level is 7 to 9, bottom level is 9 to 11. And so if you have a type of timer that starts when you put the batteries in, nobody wants to go down there at 5 o'clock in the morning and start their timer. So with a timer like this, you got your start time, you can program in, and they're pretty simple, almost self-explanatory.
Yeah, yes. Be sure to keep the pamphlet and highlight the stuff you need to remember. But yeah, but yeah, it's. I mean, this one's really simple. Auto is. It's got the clock on it. Oh, you got rain delay. Set the clock. You just have your blinking and you set your clock to the time will run out. Daylight savings. Start time. This one's set for 5:37 a.m. And then how often?
Once a day.
Oh, how long? 13 minutes. This one's 13 minutes. So it starts at 5. Starts at what did I say? 5:37. And this is just an example. She hadn't set it up, obviously. And then how long? For 13 minutes. And probably starting out, probably I use 1 gallon, which I say I like to keep the same increments. Then you know exactly, and then you do the math after that. A half hour, 15 minutes would be good. And then how often, and that's how many days. You want it every day or you want it every other day, just depending on, again, on your weather, and then off. So if it's been raining like this, off would be the position to put it in. Somebody asked about watering. How do you monitor?
Orbit?
I'm
Is
sorry.
that the name of that Orbit?
This one is a green thumb.
But Orbit is the same. They
There's
don't
several of them. Rainbird. I got Rainbird at home. Mine's a little complicated. I got 3 settings, 3 different sets. So like my lawn's on one, the orchard's on another, my garden's on another. You guys don't need that here. You'll have enough. Just one. This will be just one set, so you don't need different sets. But how do you know? Go ahead.
Just one problem, they run about $34 a piece.
These? Yeah.
Co-op
Yeah.
this week, on sale. I think they run probably higher. But
I think it's right around $30.
Or 40, 35 to $40.
But
Unless you get one that has 2 outlets and it's gonna cost you a little bit more.
Yeah.
you don't need 2 outlets. It's worth it. I know.
Yeah, I know, you can,
No, it really is.
Pretty years.
It really frees you up to go bowling or whatever you want to go do and not have to worry about it, or leave for the weekend, hang out with family or whatever. It really frees you up. And you come home and your garden looks good. It's worth a little bit of wear and tear and just worry. But anyway, I learned this from an OSU extension agent, and that was how do you check water moisture? How do you know how wet your garden is? Should you water more and all that? They got fancy little meters out there, which I don't know what they cost. But it's simple. Get a big screwdriver, long blade screwdriver, and just poke it in the ground. That's what he did. If it's hard to poke in, you're dry. If you pull it up, it's got mud on it, you're wet. And so I know it sounds kind of corny and simple, but this was an agent, an extension agent, and I use it all the time. He's exactly right. Poke it in, it kind of really gives you a feel of what your moisture is.
Besides that, it gets, lets the water seep down the hole.
Exactly. Exactly. It opens up your ground. While you're there, wait a little.
That way you don't have to import moles.
You guys got holes?
Moles.
Oh, no.
We got
Ground
Squirrel.
squirrel.
Oh. I don't want to tell you what I do. But
Do you have any idea how many gallons, let's say, a week, a large tomato plant would use?
I don't. It depends, you know, obviously as the season goes on, the question is, how do you gauge how much water a tomato plant needs? I know like right now, I don't know how many people have like us, we've got our babies in the ground, we got all our aromas and some are like this and some of them are taller. And we just go out and kind of check them every day. And I just start out with a gallon. And then you can kind of incrementally work your way around. I just don't have an answer for that. It's just hard to.
Soak it every single day.
Michael, let me ask you a question about the hose bib. I don't turn that thing
All the way
70 times until it's all the way open. I make one rotation. What do you guys recommend? And that obviously would reduce water and reduce pressure, I would assume, by not turning that hose, the faucet.
Well,
So the question, we got a camera here. The question is that, I like the idea what he's saying is
Listen.
that,
When you open it up, see how many times I'm turning this thing? Well, now you got the full flow. And you don't need the full flow, I don't think. I just do what I have been doing. Okay, just paid attention to it. That was it.
well, the only problem with that,
That's what I'm asking.
if you open it all the way up and you got a timer, you got a pressure regulator, and you got your drip system in, it's not an issue. You can open it up or not. But what I found, if you don't open it all the way up, sometimes there's not enough. It'll build up to enough pressure, but when it first starts, there might not be enough pressure there to operate or to shut the timer off. You can hear your little timer click, and it does take pressure to operate it. So if you don't have the volume there, I don't know. Maybe I'm way off base on that.
It just seems kind of wasted to me.
well, I agree, your pressure regulator is gonna stop. And really the only time I don't use a pressure regulator, but I don't need it, because I use some pretty strong clips and clamps and stuff. On these, you'll definitely need a pressure regulator. But you're right, to activate your timer, you really need a certain amount of pressure. And the water is not wasted. It's just all it is, it's a lot of volume pushing, but it's not wasted because each one of these emitters is only going to let out the amount of water, a gallon or whatever it is. And the pressure compensating. Now maybe I didn't explain what that means, but pressure compensating means that, let's say if you're on a real steep hill, the bottom one holds back water because it's got more pressure on it. The upper ones have less pressure on them, so they open up more. So it distributes your water evenly across your garden on the hills or downhills or whatever. So that's why you really kind of want the most pressure at the beginning. Your pressure regulator will take care of it for everything else, having it matched. And that's really kind of.
I guess I got started doing that with the guys who had the twirly jobber do in there, and it was watering the paths because the knob was open.
Yeah, they have lawn sprinklers in there.
Right. Yeah. If we don't have any of those, then that's less.
Yeah, and the pressure does fluctuate. We know that. And they have a pressure tank up there in the system that helps compensate for that, but it will come on when the pressure drops down a little bit. It'll come back on, build it back up. So, but with a drip system, it's not an issue. If you got a sprinkler out there or something else, it is an issue because that sprinkler, like you said, be up and down. So, and a lot of times with the overhead sprayers too, like 1/2-inch PVC, we have some of that down there, and they have almost like the pop-up lawn sprinklers there. Unless they've got some sort of compensating head on that thing, they're going to do the same thing. And when the wind blows, then it goes everywhere too. So that's why we're kind of favoring the drip system.
Yeah, it's gonna, with the timer on there, I know it's $30, but it's just all of this, and then all of this together, it's all about making your plants happy and I mean, you can even go a step further. They even make where you can have a cast, where you can even run fertilizer through. There's some of those. I don't know if anybody's done that. Well, you can put a canister on there with fertilizer, and that's called fertigation. I love fertigation. Fertigation, we used to use it in the orchard. I'd let the trees get a little bit thirsty, and then I'd give them a shot of nitrogen or gypsum or whatever they needed, and especially nitrogen. These plants love nitrogen. And they were thirsty, and they took that nitrogen up. It just naturally does it. So that's called fertigation. So that is another option. Here's something else I wanted to mention too. Let's say these are tomatoes, and I know like later if you got your irrigation running every day, tomatoes later in the season they do not like water every day. We do know that, right? Does anybody with me on this? Is that you have to shut them off, and so that's what this does. This is a shut-off valve, goes in these lines, and you can put it up here. Have a shut-off valve to shut off to your tomatoes, because as they start ripening, they don't want as much water. And sometimes they'll just stay green, stay green, stay green. You shut your water off, they'll redden up.
So how much water do they want? They don't want it every day, they want it every other day? How do you know?
I can use that screwdriver and just, it's hard. I don't have, everybody, you kind of the master of your own garden. And you just kind of, every year, I make mistakes and I do things to improve, but you just really know.
And soil composition would change all of that anyway.
Sure, exactly. We got different soils, we got different climates. You guys got a great place for a garden. You're south-facing, it's beautiful, beautiful place. Better than when it was back over here. I mean, it's great. A little noisy with the freeway, ballpark. The plants don't know it noise.
Before you leave tomatoes actually like to be a little stressed.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they produce lots of leaves in the tomatoes. What you can also get for that quarter-inch SpaghettiOs are little shutoffs that fit right on the line there. Because sometimes you'll find you have, on one line, you might have tomatoes, you might have peppers, you might have
And I think
a number of different
boards, a small quarter-inch shut-off valve, maybe.
It's real tiny. It just fits right on that quarter-inch SpaghettiOs.
No, right? It's right
The bottom one?
at the bottom right.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, right there.
And there's a little knob on top, and you can control the flow with that.
Oh, I
In
did.
fact,
You're right.
you don't have to turn it off. You can just cut it down quite a bit.
I think I do have one of those. And here's another thing, you don't have to put it at the beginning. Let's say if you have your tomatoes down here, say if your tomatoes are down here, you can put it in the middle too. So you can divide it up, so you don't worry. It doesn't have to be a whole line, it could be part of a line. So. Or use these where you can shut them off. But if you got a lot of tomato plants, this is quicker.
You might also want to talk about the real benefit of having drip irrigation is you're not overhead spraying leaves on plants. There are some plants that do not like to be sprayed. And what you're actually doing is putting the water just down at the roots where they want it. You put it on the leaves, so let's say you do it later in the day, you go there with the hose, but later in the day it's 100 degrees, you can actually burn the plants. So drip irrigation really keeps the water off the leaves, which is what they don't want in the summer.
Yeah, in the orchards we had peaches, and we ran drip irrigation on the peaches because you could not run older tree sprinklers on peaches because they'll mildew.
The mildew, a lot of
And tomatoes same way. You don't want over water and stuff. You don't burn your leaves and stuff. Where the drip irrigation, it's going to give that plant the exact amount of water that it needs, and then it's up to you to decide how hot it is and your soil types, as you had mentioned, soil types. Everybody's got a little different soil, depending on your amendments, how much compost. I've got chickens, so I got great compost, and I got leaves. I run over my lawnmower and shred them up, and I got compost going all the time, and so I'm big on compost. It's amazing. I've always said that, especially with orchards and things like that, you've got your tree and all of it that's going on. And underneath here, you got all this other world that we don't see. got microbes and all that beautiful activity going on in the root system and so on. Healthy trees make good fruit, good vegetables, and that's why we're doing this, is that you guys want to be able to go out and pick that fresh tomato off, or that herbs is what we mainly grow. We got basil, and we got all of that, all the herbs. I like herbs. In fact, we put them in our jars, and let's say saying the other day we were a little short on basil. It's like, oh no, so we'll grow more next year. And but yeah, sure, better than using other type of food additives that we do. I don't use salt, so just a little bit of herbs sure makes the steak taste good, or eggs or whatever. So I like herbs.
Can I show 2 techniques?
Yes, absolutely. This is a working shop here. We're just
Remember when Terry did put one of these in here? And he stuck his little poker tool in there, and it made the hole. And he put the connector in there, and then he went nuts trying to do this. My technique is put this onto this first, because now you got 2 hands that can do this. Then stick it into where your hole is. That's easy. This is nothing to stick it in here. So having said that, another technique that I use a lot. Ooh, this one's different. This I don't know if you saw what he had. This is a jabber. It's like a nail. There's another kind that's basically kind of call it a cylinder for lack of anything. It's a hollow blade that goes in, and instead of just pushing it in there, it actually cuts a hump of this out. If you have that kind instead of this kind, get a straight pin, because eventually that cylinder is going to get all clogged up with chunks of this, and pretty soon it's going to just squat.
Yeah.
So I keep my little straight pin handy to pull out the pieces of this hose, so then now it becomes a blade instead of a blunt object. But I think, I never even saw these guys. This is a good idea.
Yeah, it just makes a hole. And what he's saying, I like what he's saying. It is a good way to do it. Sometimes I get in a hurry, I don't do it that way. But he's saying, like, right now, you put this on, you still got to do a little bit.
Yeah, but you got 2 hands.
You got 2 hands to do it. So you do a little wiggling to get it on, and you take your emitter. Same thing, this room's nice and warm, so same thing. You kind of just wiggle it on. And sometimes my hands aren't like they used to be. And so I I'll take a pair of pliers. And just something to hold it. And then that just makes it easier. Then that kind of helps hold it.
Yep.
And I'll do that. And like he's saying, now you're all ready to just go ahead and poke it in there. Use this punch. Right, this is a good punch. You just take that punch, be careful. Don't put your hand behind it. Try not to. But it just pokes a hole in. And then now you got this all set up. It's ready to go. And another thing I didn't mention, but a tape measure is always nice to have. So that, your plant is this far away, so you cut a piece that long.
You don't cut the tube before you know how long it's supposed to be.
Cut your tube. If you do it this way, you got to cut the tube. And you hear that snap. It's in.
And cut the tube long, just in case you have to move it to the other side of the plant, or you have to move it someplace else.
Or let's say you don't say, this didn't work out. I really don't want this on here, so I'm going to take this out. And it's in there good. Take that out. I'm going to put a Goof Plug in there. My Goof Plug, And this is one of those Goof Plugs, and then I can move to the other side or not even have it on there. And it's the same way, it just snaps right in. Pops right in.
The bad news of that is when you pull that barb out of the 1/2-inch hose, you no longer have a round hole. You've elongated it, and it's not as good a seal as it was when you first started. The alternative to that is put your goof plug at the end of the 1/4-inch thing, just cut it off or whatever you want to do, and then that way you're not, when you yank that out of there, you've changed the diameter of the hose.
Yeah, and then the goof plugs I get are 2 sizes. It's got a bigger hole. That'll really take care of that.
Down the same
Yeah,
plug.
instead of the same one,
Yeah.
go to the bigger one. And it'll plug a high percentage of the time.
And if anybody has any problem with putting this stuff together now, call Pete.
Yeah.
I'll be at the pool, so give me a call.
That's a good place to be in the afternoon. Get this work done in the morning, in the afternoon out by the pool. Absolutely agree with that. With your favorite beverage.
I have a question.
Yeah, please.
I'm just gonna start with one of those raised tabletop gardens. And I'm probably gonna do mix mostly wildflowers.
Oh, nice.
So I would think I would just need something to line through it a little bit.
Yeah, just that would be what we talked about here.
Later, like we
The
do
hose
now.
has a little emitter.
They're called inline drippers.
Yeah, inline drippers. They
Okay.
sell them at Home Depot. They look. In fact, what happened is how I ended up with them is I was looking for this and I ended up buying those. I got them home and didn't know it. So be sure to read the package. This says drip irrigation tubing, and that one has it's called. I don't know what it's called.
I think
It's called a much higher price. That's the way you can tell the difference.
Yeah, these are $9. That'd be 20.
That's right.
But anyway, yeah. But they got the emitters in there, and they are really nice. And so that's what I use. They're inline
dripper line.
inline.
So 1/4-inch
And
inline.
actually, they're emitter lines.
Yeah,
I think.
emitter line.
Yeah.
Yeah, emitter line.
Yeah.
They sell at Home
You
Depot.
probably wouldn't need any more than 25 feet for that.
Okay.
Yeah, you would. This
Okay.
it looks just like this on the package. It looks just like this, except this is spaghetti. I call it spaghetti tubing, but they say just tubing.
You'll probably only find 50-foot length, but I'll buy the rest of it off.
Oh,
There you go.
So,
all right.
I will add that we're trying to get parts and pieces built up down there. So if somebody needs something, they don't want to run down to a hardware store, all they got to do is get a hold of me or Vicky, and
Great
we
idea.
a lot of those parts. And the same way with the emitter tubing, I think we'll have some of that on hand. 1/4-inch tubing, 1/2-inch tubing. So save you a trip down to the hardware store. A lot of times you want to go in there and get the job done. You don't want to run down to the hardware store and get it.
As soon as you do that, you're gonna find you missed something else and you gotta go back to the hardware.
Oh yeah.
Or in other words, you
Fix a
just come
faucet.
back to us.
It's trips usually. But yeah, that's why I really like this. I just have more than what I need, and it's all organized. I go out to the garden, and it's all right there. Yes.
So if you have inline dripper
Uh-huh.
tubing, can you run an emitter off of the inline, or do you have to have a separate tubing?
No, you can.
No,
They have inline that you can add onto. They're an inline dripper.
No,
So you can go on.
You'd have to go off the end.
Yeah, ask the question again.
Well, I was thinking in part of my garden, I had the inline dripper tubing. Can I run an emitter off for one plant off of that tubing, or do I need
No.
separate tubing?
Yeah, you can. I've done it.
Probably
Well,
a 1/4-inch T.
But if you're, let's say, if this is your poly tube, your big tube coming off, and you're running that through there, if she wants to run another emitter, you have to put in. You can't run it off of this. Only on the end you could.
No, I do it in the middle. You just cut it and put
How
a
do
T
you
in.
get into the
Put a
middle?
little
of this?
T,
Just put a T in.
a little 1/4-inch T.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. That's right. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
But you don't want to do that too often.
Yeah.
Because it upsets the balance of the whole line.
Right. Okay. Let me show you what he's talking about. I forgot about that. You're right. So what you would do is, yeah, in that line, this is what you do.
Okay,
So let's say this is your line here, and you're gonna run another one off.
but I can do this off of the inline dripper tubing.
Yes. Good point. Yeah, I forgot about those T's and L's and things like that. In fact, sometimes coming down at the end, you might put a couple of L's in instead of bending it around. So a
Yeah.
couple of L's in and
Say that again, because that's a good one.
down. And then also, she's got the T, or I got the T's, but anyway, also they make L's. Yeah, they make L's also. So you got T's and L's. And so like down here, instead of just kinking that around, just come down and put it in 2 L's. And then put a small piece between.
Yep.
So that you'd have it like
And the
that.
same thing on the half inch. Like
Yeah, just
that L right there on the
works just
demo
like
thing.
this.
If you try to curl that, you're probably gonna kink it.
Yeah, you are. See, so what you're gonna be doing on your dripper line is you're gonna be putting that T in, then running off another little pullet instead of off of this. It's gonna look like this, but you're gonna be doing it with this.
You could also use those staples in the ground to hold it so it doesn't kink,
Mm-hmm.
make a loop.
Yeah, she's got some of those on here, some of these U-shaped little
And metal.
They call them landscape staples or ag staples.
Yeah,
I call them wire hangers that you cut and bend.
yeah, cool. Cool.
Yep.
I use rocks. I got a lot of rocks in my garden, so I use rocks. But yeah, that's the hard. That's really is the hard part is when you pull this tubing out, it wants to curl back, and so you need something kind of anchor it. Like I say, dirt or rock or something will help.
Can I add one other thing? When you put a bar from a 1/4 inch line into a 1/2 inch line, what I find is that sometimes it's really helpful, once the barb is in, just to pull gently back away from the hose.
It closes.
That does 2 things. It closes it tighter, and the other thing, it assures that you actually got it in there and snapped it, so it doesn't pop out.
Yeah, like that one that didn't go in.
You just put it in,
Only
and
you saw.
just pull back the tiniest bit. That's all you have to do.
Good point.
And that's why that pointed probe does better than the actual one that has a hole in it. It's a tinier hole, and when you pull it out, it really seals perfectly.
You know, with that one with the hole, it's supposed to be able to catch the little punch hole going in, but they don't.
Well, mine always did. That's why I had to stick them straight pin.
Yeah.
Take them out of there.
Yeah, you can't get them out. So no, this one, Home Depot's got them. They come in all colors, that's all right. Because in a garden, you set something down, it's like,
Right.
if
Colorful.
it's, you don't want it green or dark color, you gotta have orange. My grandfather was colorblind, and all of it, I guess he could see some colors, but all of his hammers and everything was orange. Yeah, they were painted orange. Anyway, yes.
Michael, you might want to, I think you mentioned it in the email, but for some folks who really don't think they can take this on, you can hire the landscapers to do it.
Yeah, the groundspeople, as a matter of fact, we were told that they've got enough people now, they're gonna have somebody in grounds down specifically for the gardens to take care of plots that get behind or tilling or weed control and stuff like that, I guess. So, but yeah, they're available to help with installing drip systems. And it's the drip systems are, if anybody has any question, if they're going to take this on, if they have any questions, they can always come to me. They can go to Saul's knowledgeable chief. There's people down there that know the drip systems, and so if there is an issue and you can't get grounds at the time, there's always somebody available to help you out.
We trade work for food.
Here you are.
Never mind.
You do it for margaritas.
I'll be there with my glass.
So, is everybody kind of comfortable? You got resources if you need it? Because it's once you have it set up, you're just going to sit back and go, wow, this is so cool. Yeah, it's just so easy. It makes gardening fun. It really is. Right? You've
I don't
been kind
think
of
so.
quiet.
It's not quite that good. I mean, the first 3 days of the season, I'm out there fixing my drip system.
You didn't put it together right.
Yeah, listen to that click.
Yeah, you're gonna have, there's no doubt. It's like because I try to leave mine in every year. And I'll catch it with something and, I turn everything on and you're gonna have blowouts, you're gonna have leaks, you're gonna have different things. Some of these goof plugs that you had mentioned. I like your idea of just leaving it in there and just putting a cap on the end of the tubing.
I just thought of another thing that can get you screwed up pretty quickly when you're buying this stuff. There's 2 different types of pipe threads.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Pipe threads.
Like threads.
That hose,
Oh,
most of this stuff is a hose thread. The same thing that your bid is that same. But also in this stuff at Home Depot, you're gonna find one that's, I don't know what they call it, PVC. It's a different size
Pipe thread.
pipe. There's pipe, hose thread, and pipe thread.
Yeah.
And what you should do when you're at Home Depot is you've got the thing that you want, and you want to have some sort of, it has threads on it. Pick up one of the samples in there and try to do it. If you have to force it, you got the wrong one. So go for pipe thread or hose thread.
You're gonna want hose thread.
Hose thread.
Yeah, see, hose thread is more coarse, as I recall.
Yeah.
Pipe thread is more fine coarse.
Yeah.
And so he's saying, let's say I'm getting a fitting, and some of these fittings that go on the end here, like this here. See, that's all hose fitting. This is all hose fitting. That's hose fitting. That's hose fitting. But sometimes on this one, the other day, I bought
That's a guilty party right there.
right there. I bought one the other day, and I was going to use it here. And all of a sudden, I looked, and I had pipe fitting. So like your name, Keith. Like he's saying, grab something that you know is a hose fitting, something or other, and just try it. If it goes on real easy, threads on real easy, you got it. If it starts on, first thing it'll kind of kink and go sideways.
Yeah.
You got the wrong one. So
And it may only turn about a quarter of a turn or something.
yeah, you'll know right away because it'll stop, it'll kink. But if it goes on
Which
real
one is
easy,
that?
I'm sorry.
Which one is that?
This
Hose.
one, these are all hose fittings. See, they're a little more coarse. And when you look at the little deal at Home Depot, it'll say hose fitting, pipe fitting, if you look close enough.
Okay.
So pipe fitting is like faucets, like you're plumbing in your house. It's smaller thread. So you'll feel it. Like just take an example of take a nozzle or something with you in your pocket, and it goes on and you got the right one. But be careful because it happened to me. I just didn't read the deal and I grabbed it because they're all
These things,
they're
those
all
that
in
thing, that end pieces you were just pointing at, that one right there.
Yeah.
When you go to Home Depot,
they're all in the same area.
some guys are really awful. They'll take it, that's the wrong one, they'll just
Oh,
throw
yeah.
it back in there. You don't know what the heck you're pulling out of that bin.
Yeah.
And they don't put a label on those things that you can find. So you really have to try it before you buy it. Otherwise, you're gonna make the trip back to Michael's, or we're gonna offer to take you back and get the replacement part.
A suggestion that might make it easier for something like that is also check out the co-op Grange. The Grange has a section just on drip irrigation. It's laid out really nicely. It's not those tiny little boxes from Home Depot. Home Depot almost has too much. It's a little bit confusing. If you go to the Grange, they'll just have these parts and these parts only. And in a real easy to understand manner. Nice layout. So I suggest that you go there and please check that out.
And not only that, if you're part military, you get a discount at the Grange.
That's right. And Home Depot too.
Yes, that's
No,
right.
you don't have a grant.
Yeah. Yes, you do.
A military discount?
Yeah.
No, you don't.
Wait a minute, what did we get?
You get free membership
Free membership at Joanne's.
Oh,
as a
okay.
veteran.
Yeah. For us vets, yeah, the Home Depot, Lowe's, Blackbird, which is coming to Phoenix. I live in Phoenix. Blackbird's coming. I love Blackbird. Yeah. And then for also, if you go to the Carhartt store, Carhartt, 20% off.
So,
You know if they have the filters for the drainage tanks?
You know, in the 3 years that I've been here, 3 years I've had the garden, I haven't found any need to have filters, but that filter, it only costs like $3, and it's a really good one, the one that's on the board. I'm gonna put them in this year. I really recommend them. You know the one, talking
The one
about
with
that
the
little
T?
one, the little filter.
yeah,
Oh, this right
It's
here?
really cheap, it
Yeah.
really works. I haven't found the need for, none of my emitters have been clogged in 3 years. So I haven't found the need yet, but now Michael has mentioned that we perhaps have more dirt in the system because of work that was done on the system. So I think it's a great idea to buy one of those.
When you were touting Grange Co-op, I find that they don't always have what you need.
you're
in the
right.
way of the drip stuff, such as the emitter. I was in there looking for that just this last week, and the guy said, "Oh, that's what this empty shelf is. We haven't seen any in months."
Well, you know,
And the other thing
They
that
should be getting that in soon, yeah.
I haven't been able to get is the shut-off valves.
Aha.
one thing that's gonna help everybody in Rogue Valley this year, now Ewing is on South Pacific Highway, they have everything. They do have everything. And if they don't, and Grover is really good too, they don't give a discount.
But they know what they're talking about.
They do know what they're talking about. In fact, my daughter built a house in Talent, and they gave them they measured out their yard and everything. They designed the irrigation system for them.
Grover's the best place around here.
Yeah, it's really good.
No, they did that. I know they did
Yeah.
electrical, they do this
Yeah,
too.
they do plumbing, and they're knowledgeable, and that Home Depot is a little bit, sometimes the shelves are empty, but that one fitting you're talking about, why do they have that back there with the hose stuff? And I picked it up yesterday, and it was a pipe fitting. And
sometimes
why
they
is it
use,
back there?
they use a blue
Yeah,
end on it, and sometimes it's a green end, but I don't trust that at all, I always try.
Yeah,
Well,
it's a good idea.
okay. Point on that, the blue and the green and that, those are different size hoses.
Yeah.
And you gotta be careful when you're putting your system together, when you're buying
That's important.
replacement parts, stick with the same
Color.
manufacturer or part, whether it's black or green.
Talk about that with fittings for the half-inch hose, because they have a different color than two. There's two different
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at, yeah. So you can't, if you take a fitting with the black thing, that's a pretty good size and it's meant for the bigger tubing. But the tubing will only vary, maybe a few thousandths on the size, but you can't, one won't work with the other. You have to make sure that if you get that tubing, you get those fittings to go with that tubing. Otherwise, it's gonna be a headache.
Shouldn't be very big.
So, just for anybody that's getting started, I made this up for Liz. Liz is getting going. And it's, Lowe's is here, Home Depot is here. It's got what you might need, kind of goes along with the board. It has the pricing and SKU number.
Wow.
I hope so.
Yeah.
That's really helpful. Really helpful.
Who brought her?
She brought me.
Oh, there we go.
This is a community, no doubt. I mean, we're all here for each other. That's pretty cool. That really is.
You have your name up right.
You can see that part?
No, but it looks like the last thing is a Y. That's one
It
of
is
the.
upside down.
I told her that, but she didn't.
But she can look down and see who she is.
Yeah,
That's how it works.
Reminds you.
For the last several years, her name tag has always been upside down.
Maybe she likes it that way.
So anyway, I guess that's it. I didn't want to take a whole lot of time. We went through this really quickly. I didn't want to go too quickly if we missed anything, so. And again, if you have any questions, don't be shy. I mean, it's challenging after you haven't, as a kid, if you didn't have rigging jigs and tinker toys, it might be a little challenging. Or a director said, right?
So, one other thing I might say is, I got a hold of Jerry because of the orchard originally down there. The orchard has been kind of running the bus over recent years. he came in and he did all the pruning,
He did a
with the
beautiful
exception
job.
of Gene.
He did a beautiful job.
Yeah, and if you, Gene Grafson has the first peach tree closest to the gazebo. And then the next good-sized peach tree is one that, if you go down there and you take a look at those two trees, one, Gene's was done by somebody else. Terry did the rest of the trees. If you take a look at those two peach trees, you can tell the difference. The one that Terry did is gonna produce some beautiful peaches this year. So
Did they make it through the frost okay?
they did. The trees look great. You might take
I
time to go
will,
down
I'm
and
gonna
look
take
at
a drive down there.
Yeah. So,
It's a beautiful tree.
and he's done, I think, Tom, one of the grapes on the second level.
Oh, yeah.
You pruned that one. So, very knowledgeable, and, I will say very reasonable.
Oh,
So, you know,
It's fun.
welcome aboard, you know, we're gonna have more of this kind of stuff, so.
yeah. Well, good knowledge if you can't share it, right? I mean, really, and then you guys, all your input and stuff, it was good. It was a good discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
So let's give him a hand.